So if you pull out your phone right now and you open Google Earth
Okay.
and just zoom in on a massive forest,
Right.
like literally anywhere in the world,
Right.
and you just keep zooming until your entire screen is just this unbroken, brilliant sea of green canopy.
Yeah, just green everywhere.
Right. Looking at that satellite image,
Yeah,
you'd probably think, well, that ecosystem is perfectly healthy
of course.
because it's green, it's huge, the trees are there. I mean, it must be intact, right?
Yeah, but you would be completely wrong.
Right.
It's a very common illusion. I mean, we're deeply conditioned to equate green cover with a thriving environment.
Yeah.
But if you were to drop down from orbit and, actually walk beneath that canopy, you might find a completely silent forest.
Wow.
Yeah, like the large mammals could have been entirely hunted out decades ago.
Right.
Or the native bees and butterflies, they might be gone because of pesticide drift from, I don't know, agricultural fields like 100 miles upwind.
Oh, wow. 100 miles?
Yeah. Or you might look down and realize the native underbrush has been totally choked out by a highly aggressive invasive plant.
Oh, I see.
Which is completely changing the soil chemistry so new native trees can't even sprout.
So it looks green, but it's the wrong green.
Exactly. Or here's something you can't see from space. A vast network of dirt logging roads has sliced that seemingly endless forest into 100 disconnected little islands.
Right.
So the trees you see from space are still standing, sure, but the actual machinery of the forest is broken.
The machinery is broken. And that is the exact mental shift we're aiming for in this deep dive today.
Yeah.
Because we're exploring a stack of scientific notes on the recent planetary boundaries assessment.
Mm.
And we're really focusing on this idea of biosphere integrity.
Mm-hmm.
And the mission here is to kind of move away from viewing nature as this passive, pretty scenery outside our windows and start seeing it as a massive, highly active life support machine.
Right.
Because for decades, the buzzword we've all used is biodiversity.
Why? Biodiversity.
But scientists are increasingly shifting to this much more rigorous concept called biosphere integrity.
Yeah, they are.
And I'm trying to wrap my head around the exact difference. So I was thinking, if standard biodiversity is basically just a zoo inventory,
Okay.
like a static checklist of how many different animals we have sitting in cages,
Mm.
is biosphere integrity the actual staff and the plumbing and the food deliveries and like the waste management that keeps the entire zoo from collapsing?
That's actually a really useful way to look at it.
Okay, good.
Because the public often misunderstands biodiversity as just a mere head count.
Right. Like, we just want a high number of species so we count them up.
Right. But the biosphere is not a museum displaying static artifacts. It is an active regulating component of the Earth system.
Ideally.
Yeah, it physically interacts with the atmosphere. It drives the water cycle. It stabilizes the climate. I mean, plants are actively capturing solar energy.
Right.
Microorganisms are working around the clock, breaking down dead matter to pump nutrients back into the soil.
Right.
Animals are physically transporting that energy across hundreds of miles through migration and food webs.
Right.
So the biosphere is the physical engine of the planet. And when we talk about its integrity, we're really looking at two separate but very connected dimensions.
Okay.
So first, you have the genetic diversity.
Which is essentially like the evolutionary library of life, right?
Exactly. It's the vast library of genetic code that gives populations the capacity to adapt. So when the environment changes...
It's like climate change or...
Yeah, climate change, or whether it's a new disease sweeping through, genetic diversity is essentially the Earth's insurance policy.
Oh, I see.
If a species has a deep, diverse genetic pool, some individuals will likely carry the traits needed to survive the new threat and, carry the population forward.
Right.
But the second dimension, which ties back to your zoo plumbing analogy, is functional integrity.
Okay, so if genetic diversity is the library, functional integrity is the engine actually running.
Yes. Functional integrity is about the flow of energy and materials. You can't just have the genetic code sitting there in theory. You need organisms actively doing their jobs in the environment.
Right.
So a forest might still have a genetic population of wolves, for example, but if there are only 5 of them left in an area the size of Texas...
They're not doing much.
Right. They are functionally extinct. They are no longer doing their job of managing the deer population.
Which means the deer overgraze.
Exactly. The deer overgraze, which means the riverbanks erode, which means the water quality drops.
Oh, wow.
So you need both a deep genetic library and a smooth-running engine to to maintain our life support system.
Okay, so if the goal of modern ecology is to ensure both that library and that engine are safe, scientists have to somehow measure them.
Right.
And this is where the science gets incredibly daunting for me. I mean, how do you possibly put a single number on the entire functional engine of planet Earth?
It's tough.
Because I was looking at the primary metric they use for functional integrity, and it's this acronym, HANPP.
Ah, yes. HANPP.
Human appropriation of net primary production. And I have to admit, when I first read that, it just sounded like corporate jargon for stealing plant food.
Stealing plant food is actually the perfect literal translation of what humanity is doing.
Really?
Yeah. To understand how we measure the engine, we have to look at the fuel source. So let's break down the mechanics of net primary production first, or NPV.
Okay, MPP.
When a plant photosynthesizes, it captures sunlight and turns it into biological matter. Sugar, leaves, wood.
Right.
But the plant is a living thing, so it has to burn some of that energy just to stay alive, essentially breathing.
Right, respiration.
Exactly. So whatever physical energy is left over after the plant's own respiration, that is the net primary production.
Oh, I see.
That leftover plant biomass is the foundational energy currency for the entire planet. It's the base fuel that feeds every insect, which feeds every bird, which feeds every predator.
So it's basically the total biological budget of the Earth.
Precisely. It's the budget. Now, bring in the human appropriation part of HANPP. HANPP measures exactly how much of that total global energy budget humanity is taking for ourselves or denying to the rest of the ecosystem.
So how are we taking it?
We do it in two main ways. First, we directly harvest it.
Like farming.
Farming, yeah. When you buy a bag of coffee, when you eat a snack containing palm oil, when we cut down a forest for timber, we are physically extracting that primary energy from the Earth's budget.
Right.
Second, we alter the land's capacity to produce it in the first place. So if you pave over a highly productive, lush wetland to build a massive concrete parking lot,
Right.
you've permanently destroyed the area's ability to generate biological energy.
Because nothing's growing under the concrete.
Exactly.
We are measuring our absolute cut of the planet's energy. So
Yeah.
for the Earth's engine to keep running smoothly, like how much of that budget are we actually allowed to take?
So the scientific consensus for a safe planetary boundary is that humanity should keep our appropriation below 10%.
10%.
Yeah, relative to what the Earth produced before the Industrial Revolution.
Yeah.
If we take 10%, we leave enough fuel for the rest of the biosphere to function, to adapt, and maintain its integrity.
And where are we at right now?
Current data shows we are hovering around 30%.
30%. Wow.
Yeah, we are hogging nearly a third of the foundational energy of the entire Earth system.
So we've literally tripled the safe limit.
We have.
Okay, so if we're hoarding that much energy, what is happening to the millions of species that rely on the other 70%, which I'm assuming is constantly shrinking?
It is shrinking, yeah.
And that brings us to the other metric from the notes, the one for the genetic library,
Right.
which is an extinction rate.
Yeah.
Scientists track this using E/MSY, so extinctions per million species years.
Yeah, EMSY.
But visualizing a million species years is incredibly abstract.
Yeah.
It's really hard to feel the weight of that.
It is very abstract. Let's try to translate it into something mechanical.
Okay.
Imagine an airplane in flight, and the rivets holding the wings together represent individual species. Naturally, over the course of many long flights, a rivet might just pop loose due to standard wear and tear. This is the natural background rate of extinction.
Because species do die out naturally.
Exactly, over deep time they do. In a healthy biosphere, the natural rate is about one rivet popping loose every so often, which scientists call 1 EMSY.
Okay.
It's a slow enough rate that evolution can replace the rivet and the plane flies perfectly fine.
Right.
The absolute maximum safe boundary, where the plane might get a bit shaky but won't crash, is losing 10 rivets.
So 10 EMSY is the danger zone boundary.
Yes.
And where is humanity currently sitting on that scale?
We are currently losing over 100 rivets.
100 rivets.
Yeah, and in some ecosystems, it's hundreds of times higher than the natural background rate over the last 10 million years.
Oh my God. So to stick with the airplane analogy, we are popping hundreds of rivets out of the wings in midair.
While we're flying, yeah.
But, I mean, tracking those rivets globally must be incredibly difficult because we haven't even discovered millions of species, mostly insects and fungi, let alone track them long enough to know the exact moment the very last one dies. So how confident are scientists in that 100-plus number?
That's a great question. And there is an immense amount of uncertainty built into these metrics. Extinction is notoriously difficult to track.
I can imagine.
And our oceans, for example, are largely a mystery when it comes to deep sea biodiversity. So these numbers, the HNPP and the extinction rates, they are pragmatic proxies.
Okay.
They're essentially the best available dials on our global dashboard. We might not know if the exact number of lost rivets is 110 or 150.
Right.
But the undeniable, observable trend across every major ecosystem tells us the exact same thing.
Which is that we're failing.
We are massively outside the safe operating space.
Okay, so if we're losing species at that unprecedented rate, I feel like we have to talk about the mechanics of how this unraveling actually happens. Because not every species plays the same role, right?
Ah.
Like if we lose a specific type of beetle, does it matter as much as losing a top predator?
That is the core of ecological dynamics right there. And no, all species are not equal in their mechanical function.
Okay.
To understand this, imagine a city's electrical grid. In a robust, healthy ecosystem, you have what scientists call ecological redundancy.
Redundancy.
Yeah, this is like having multiple backup generators at a local hospital.
Okay.
If one species goes extinct, say one of 5 different birds that all eat and disperse the same berry, the ecosystem doesn't collapse.
Because the other birds step in.
Exactly. The other 4 birds pick up the slack. So the initial loss doesn't trigger an immediate visible blackout.
Which actually feels incredibly dangerous. Because if we pull a rivet or turn off a generator and nothing catastrophic happens right away, it gives us a false sense of security.
Exactly.
We assume the system is bulletproof and we can just keep extracting.
And that's the trap of redundancy. We keep chipping away at the backups until there is no slack left whatsoever.
Right.
But then you have keystone species.
Okay.
These are not just backup generators. They are the main regional power transformers. They play disproportionately massive roles.
Like what's an example of that?
Well, take a specific type of massive fruiting tree in a tropical forest. It might produce fruit during the driest part of the year when literally nothing else is blooming.
Okay.
If you lose the one specific primate that disperses that tree's seeds, the tree stops reproducing.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. When that tree disappears, the dozens of insect and bird species that relied on its dry season fruit, they starve.
Wow.
Then the predators that eat those birds starve. So you hit one regional transformer and a massive section of the biological grid goes dark instantly.
Wow. So what is pulling these transformers offline globally? Like how are we actively dismantling the grid?
So at a global level, we are doing it primarily through land use change and climate change. And the most devastating part is how those two forces interact.
How so?
They create a catastrophic feedback loop. So let's look at the mechanism. Say you clear-cut a vast section of the Amazon rainforest to plant soy for cattle feed.
Okay.
That's land use change. Instantly, you've destroyed habitat and appropriated the biological energy, right? The HANPP.
Right.
But mechanically, you've also just eliminated millions of trees that were actively sucking carbon out of the atmosphere.
Oh.
And the trees you burn to clear the land release all their stored carbon back into the sky.
So by just altering the land, we've just hit the accelerator on climate change.
Yes. Now, because there is more carbon in the atmosphere, the global temperature rises. That excess heat creates thermal stress and it shifts rainfall patterns globally.
Okay.
So the remaining intact forest right next to your soy farm starts experiencing severe, prolonged droughts.
Because the weather changed.
Exactly. The trees dry out, the soil bakes. This weakened, degraded ecosystem is now highly susceptible to disease and massive wildfires.
Oh, man.
And when it burns, it releases even more carbon, which drives the temperature even higher, which creates worse droughts.
It just feeds itself.
It is a vicious, self-reinforcing cycle. We dismantle the local ecosystem, which breaks the global climate cycle, which then loops back around to further destroy the local ecosystem.
It's terrifying how mechanically linked it all is.
It really is.
But talking about the entire globe at once can feel a bit abstract.
Sure.
And I want to ground this in a real-world place from the source material. Because I've always assumed that human expansion, especially agriculture, just inherently means obliterating the local ecosystem.
Right, like we were saying.
Yeah, like if you want to grow food, you just have to bulldoze the grid. Is that just an unbreakable rule of human survival?
It is a really common assumption, but it doesn't actually have to be the rule.
Okay.
There are places in the world that are serving as intense proving grounds right now, actively trying to balance massive human needs with ecological reality. And the notes point out India as perhaps the most critical microcosm for this right now.
Right, India.
Yeah, you have incredibly ancient, complex ecosystems operating right alongside densely populated, rapidly transforming human landscapes. All the planetary pressures are colliding there in real time.
So what does that collision actually look like on the ground?
We'll take the Western Ghats. It's a mountain range running parallel to India's western coast.
Okay.
It's an area of breathtaking endemism, meaning it is packed with species, frogs, birds, plants that exist literally nowhere else on the entire planet.
Oh, wow.
But it is under massive pressure from expanding agriculture, infrastructure, urban sprawl. The grid is under immense stress.
Right.
Or look at the Ganga-Brahmaputra river system.
Mm.
This perfectly illustrates how functional integrity works in freshwater.
Okay, how so?
Because a river's biodiversity isn't just about having water in a channel, it is entirely dependent on the natural flow regime.
The flow regime. So you mean how the water physically moves and changes throughout the year?
Yes. The seasonal floods, the temperature changes, the sediment being carried down from the mountains. Those physical changes are the mechanical triggers for fish to spawn and for floodplains to regenerate.
Okay.
But when we build massive dams, extract huge volumes of water for irrigation, and dump industrial pollution into the system, we destroy that flow regime.
We erase the trigger.
We erase the seasonal triggers. So the water might still be there, but the functional machinery that supports the aquatic life is entirely broken.
Okay, but coming back to agriculture for a second.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because people need to eat, right?
Absolutely.
If clearing land for farming breaks the grid and altering rivers for irrigation breaks the water cycle,
Yeah.
can agriculture ever actually coexist with a healthy biosphere?
Yes, but it requires a fundamental shift in how we design our landscapes.
Okay.
Agricultural intensification, spraying heavy pesticides, planting massive monocultures of a single crop that absolutely simplifies and degrades the habitat. It kills the soil microbes and leaves zero space for wild organisms. But farming can support biodiversity if it is designed within ecological limits.
What does that actually look like for a farmer? Like, how do you farm within those limits?
Well, it looks like agroforestry, for one. It means intentionally retaining tree cover, wetlands, ponds, and strips of wild, semi-natural habitat directly integrated into the agricultural matrix.
Okay, so it's all mixed together.
Exactly. Instead of treating a farm like a sterilized factory floor where only one single plant is allowed to exist, you manage the farm as a shared ecological space.
Right.
By keeping those wild corridors, you allow the genetic library to move and adapt, and you keep the local functional engine, like natural pest control and soil nutrient cycling, running.
Why?
So it's entirely possible to balance food production with ecosystem integrity, but it requires abandoning the idea of maximum short-term extraction.
Which brings us to a really uncomfortable reality from the notes.
Yeah.
Because redesigning our agriculture and protecting our ecosystems, it isn't just a science problem. It's fundamentally a human justice problem.
It is, yeah.
And when we talk about fixing this, I feel like the instinct is always to say, well, we need to conserve more land, put fences up, create protected national parks, and keep the humans out.
Right.
But I was shocked to learn that this traditional model of conservation can actually ruin lives.
Yeah.
I mean, how can saving nature be a bad thing for people?
It's one of the most vital critiques of historical environmentalism, and it comes down to a glaring imbalance in who causes the damage, who reaps the profits, and who pays the price.
Right.
Think about the global supply chain. The people who benefit the most from environmental extraction are often sitting in cities in the global north.
Okay.
A consumer buys cheap coffee, cheap timber, or cheap electronics. The ecological destruction required to produce those cheap goods happens thousands of miles away.
So the consumer gets the benefit.
Right, completely insulated from the ecological cost.
Yeah, the profits and the products are exported while the pollution and the deforestation are just left behind.
Exactly, but it gets worse. Let's say the international community looks at that degraded area and decides, oh, it must be saved.
Right.
They implement a top-down fences and fines conservation model.
Fences and fines.
Yeah, they declare a forest a strictly protected zone. But who lives in that forest?
The local people.
Local and indigenous communities who have relied on that specific ecosystem for generations. They depend on it for their food, their traditional medicine, their livelihoods, and their cultural identities.
Yeah.
By fencing it off, the conservation policy suddenly evicts them from their own life support system. You restrict their customary access to the land without giving them a seat at the decision-making table or even fair compensation.
So the local community, who didn't even cause the massive industrial extraction in the first place, they're punished in the name of saving the land.
Exactly. The global consumer drove the destruction, but the local indigenous community pays the price for the conservation. And
Mhm.
when conservation operates like that, it ceases to be environmentalism and simply becomes an instrument of social injustice.
That's, I mean, that is a huge shift in perspective. But if the top-down model is unjust and keeping the status quo means we just keep popping every rivet out of the Earth's wings, how do we actually fix this? What does a just transition look like structurally?
Well, it means we have to stop treating conservation as something that only happens inside fenced-off parks. We have to change how we operate everywhere else.
Right.
We need aggressively sustainable supply chains so that a product's true ecological cost is accounted for. We need land use planning that actively relies on indigenous and local knowledge.
Because they actually know how to manage it.
Exactly, legally recognizing their land rights. Because time and again, data shows that indigenous managed lands have higher biodiversity than strict national parks.
Wow, really?
Yeah. We also have to look at how governments structure economic subsidies. We're currently using billions of taxpayer dollars to subsidize fossil fuels and destructive industrial agriculture.
Crazy.
And, individual behavioral changes, like buying a bamboo toothbrush, are fine. But they are mathematically insignificant compared to the systemic changes we need in global resource governance.
So it's about overhauling the entire machine, not just polishing the gears.
Precisely.
Well, as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, I want to tie all these massive concepts together for you, the listener, because the vital chain of logic here isn't just about memorizing acronyms like HNPP or EMSY.
Right.
It's about realizing that the coffee in your mug, the roads you drive on, and the climate you live in, they are all directly tied to the biosphere.
Mm-hmm.
Nature isn't just a place to visit on the weekend. It is the active, irreplaceable machinery, regulating our water, building our soil, and keeping the earth habitable.
And we are currently pushing that machinery far past its breaking point, hoarding the energy it needs to run, and stripping away its genetic backups.
Right. Which leads me to this detail from the notes about the science of collapse that really stuck with me. Because we've been trained by Hollywood to think that an ecological collapse will be a sudden, spectacular doomsday event. A brick wall we crash into on a Tuesday afternoon.
Yeah, like a disaster movie.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But the science shows that crossing a planetary boundary isn't an explosion. It's a slow transition into a zone of increasing unpredictable risk.
Yeah.
The ecological responses are gradual, they're highly complex, and completely nonlinear. Which brings us right back to where we started. That vivid, deceptive satellite image of the green forest.
Mm.
Because the canopy looks perfectly fine from the outside, even as the machinery underneath is quietly, systematically breaking down. So I want to leave you with a final thought to mull over today.
Okay.
If the collapse of our life support system isn't a sudden dramatic event that makes the evening news, but rather a slow, invisible, and unpredictable unraveling, how do we as a society generate the urgency to fight a threat we might not even be able to see or feel until it is entirely too late to reverse it?